Welcome to TV, Tennessee Valley Church. This week we are at Wellstone, a wonderful behavioral health care provider in Huntsville. One of their specialties is help with substance abuse. And today we begin a new series, The 12 Steps for Us All. The problem of addiction is far wider and far deeper than we generally acknowledge. But this is not a series only for those struggling with addictions. Remember, this series is titled The 12 Steps for Us All, because we all have issues. In fact, on Sunday morning at First Baptist Huntsville, everyone who comes in the door is going to be asked to wear a sticker that reads, "I've got issues." We all struggle with selfishness, with insecurity, with family conflict, with dark secrets we hope no one ever learns, with either a sense of entitlement or a sense of victimhood, and on and on. Despite good intentions, we struggle with behaviors, choices, and thoughts that are less than what our Creator wants for us, and that are bad for ourselves and those we love. That's why we're going to walk through the 12 steps. Keith Miller wrote, "I saw that the tenacity and compulsive nature of sin in my life acts very much like the compulsive drivenness of a person who is addicted to a chemical." And Bill Wilson, co-founder of AA, said it himself, "We are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all." Most of you will recognize the phrase 12 steps as having originated in the movement called Alcoholics Anonymous. That's correct. But let me share a brief history of the 12 steps. In 1934, a New York stockbroker, Bill Wilson, now known most often as Bill W., was an alcoholic. He had tried and failed, including 2 hospitalizations, to get sober. It was a morning in late November, and Bill W. sat drinking in his kitchen. His wife was at work. Bill was wondering if there was enough gin in the house to get him to the next day when the telephone rang. It was an old friend, also an alcoholic, asking if he could come over. When Bill W. opened the door, the old friend looked different. Bill W. offered him a drink, and his friend refused. "What's all this about?" Wilson asked, and his old friend answered, "I've got religion." The old friend explained to Bill that his human willpower had failed and doctors had pronounced him incurable. But God, the old friend said, had done for him what he could not do for himself. Bill Wilson wrote in what's now called the Big Book, "I saw that my friend was much more than inwardly reorganized. He was on a different footing. His roots grasped a new soil." Man, that's powerful. This was more than a do-over. Bill W.'s friend's roots grasped a new soil. That encounter was the beginning of a spiritual awakening for Bill W. But he was still struggling with his alcohol and ended up in the hospital once more. There in the hospital, he finally surrendered. Wilson later wrote, "I humbly offered myself to God as I then understood Him, to do with me as He would. I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away, root and branch. I've not had a drink since." But Bill W. soon recognized that his newfound sobriety was fragile and needed spiritual underpinnings. He found strength in a Christian discipleship movement called the Oxford Group. There, Wilson learned biblical principles that he recognized, if followed, could result in an alcoholic's sobriety. Bill W. met another alcoholic, a physician named Dr. Bob Smith, now known simply as Dr. Bob. The two men clicked, and in 1935, the two men known simply as Bill W. and Dr. Bob established Alcoholics Anonymous. They adopted and adapted the biblical time-proven principles taught by the Oxford Group and changed the language to make it less threatening to alcoholics who were not Christians, and thus the 12 steps were born. It's true that Bill W. and Dr. Bob made the language so generic that some have been critical of their approach. We will keep that in mind as we walk through the steps. For us, these will be the Christ-centered 12 steps. The 12 steps have been applied to all kinds of addictions, from alcohol to narcotics to gambling. For nearly a century now, hundreds of thousands of men and women whose lives were broken and whose hope was gone have found sobriety, new thinking, and new living through the 12 steps. I was at a 12-step based treatment facility for men in recovery from addiction, and I heard it said, these guys are not rebuilding their lives, they're building new lives. This series on the 12 steps is not about some inward reorganization. It's about our roots grasping a new soil. This is about building new lives. Now, let's talk about step 1, admission. AA's step 1 reads, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. I saw that step illustrated in something Saul Selby, a recovering alcoholic and follower of Jesus, wrote. He described what it was like to be controlled by alcohol. Like the man whom the river current dragged to the edge of a huge waterfall, destined to land on the rocks below, I felt powerless to prevent my next self-destructive act. That's powerlessness. Now here is today's biblical principle for us all, based on step 1. We have destructive issues that are controlling us, and we are powerless to overcome them on our own. Our guiding texts from the Bible are these. First, Romans 7, 15 and 18. I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. And second, 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9. Each time God said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad Paul wrote to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me. The humble admission of powerlessness is the foundation of the 12 steps. Little change happens without an admission that we have problems we cannot solve on our own. Now I want you to meet 4 people. Philip here finds himself unable to stay away from online gambling sites. At first, it was just recreation, but he's bleeding money now and can't stop. Pablo is always trying to prove his worth. He feels like he's got to accomplish bigger and bigger things and impress more and more people. He's obsessed with what people think of him, and he cannot shed that insecure obsession. Sarah here finds herself in bed with most guys she dates, and though she feels dirty, she can't seem to help it. Shania worries almost to the point of being incapacitated. She worries about everything from finances to the weather, and she cannot not worry. Like so many of us, Philip and Pablo and Sarah and Shania believe they've got this. They believe if they only work harder on their symptoms, they'll be fine. But they're wrong. The hard truth is that Philip and Pablo and Sarah and Shania can work harder and turn over new leaves and take doses of do better, but they never will change until they admit that they do not, in fact, have this. You see, there's a problem woven into our DNA. It's not detectable by microscopes, but it is real and it is awful. The Bible calls it our sin nature. Sin is an out-of-date word, I know, a word we might associate with old-fashioned, hooping and hollering, pulpit-pounding preachers. But there's not a better word to describe our most profound problem. That sin is woven into our DNA, and we can no more conquer that on our own than we can change our height or eye color. We're born with an overwhelming tendency to do the wrong thing. The first step involves the courageous and honest recognition that willpower ain't going to cut it. Intentions and resolutions will fail us. Until we admit we are helpless, we are helpless. Now don't go anywhere. After some great music, I'll be back to tell you the story of a snake and a bird and to offer some hope.
God sent His Son. They called Him Jesus. He came to love. I can face tomorrow because He lives. All fear is gone because I know He holds the future, and life is worth living just because He lives. How sweet to hold a newborn baby and feel the pride and joy He gives, but greater still the calm assurance this child can face uncertain days because He lives. Because He lives, I can face tomorrow because He lives. All fear is gone because I know He holds the future, and life is worth living just because He lives. Then one day I'll cross the river, I'll fight life's final war with pain.
And then as death gives way to victory, I'll see the lights of glory, and I'll know He reigns because He lives. I can face tomorrow because He lives. All fear is gone because I know He holds the future, and life is worth living just because He lives.
Is worth living just because He lives. Because He lives.
Research shows 1 in 5 of us have a diagnosable behavioral issue, but the sad thing is most of us don't seek help for it. Wellstone in North Alabama is wanting to change that. Jessica Null joins us. Thank you for letting us shoot TV Church here today.
You're welcome.
Jessica, tell us about the services here at Wellstone.
Well, at Wellstone, they provide a multitude of services, from children to the elderly to the disabled. So between Nova Center, that they work with children all the time, to substance abuse, to mental health, getting medically stable on your medications. They also have WES, which is Wellstone Emergency Services. So if someone is needing to be stabilized on their medications or they're having a mental health breakthrough or breakdown per se, they would go in there inpatient and get stable, as well as needing detox.
And it's like we're finally realizing that mental health is part of our whole health, our whole being.
It's almost like a pie. You need to have all of it equal to be able to be mentally sound and well, your self-care.
And one thing new for Wellstone is the pediatric unit.
This is new to Huntsville. So within the year, hopefully they'll be breaking ground and starting. It's a pediatric unit for psychiatric patients. So that will be a healthy environment for children to be assessed and treated for their mental health needs.
Also, River Valley Recovery Center. Tell us about that.
So Wellstone has taken this on to open an inpatient substance abuse residential program. It's the first one in many years. It's a 16-bed unit. It's male and female. They're also, our goal is to provide care to everyone, and that's even going to include pregnant addicts. That's one service that in Alabama, it's a very stigma topic that we don't talk about, and many mothers are addicted to opiates, let alone other substances. So being able to provide them medical care and stabilization on medications and a safe living environment, that's what we hope to provide.
And this will be located in Hazel Green.
In Hazel Green.
When does it open?
We, prayerfully within the next 2 months. It's just taking a little bit of time getting, everything set up and ready to go so people will have a healthy environment to be in.
Whether we have a substance abuse issue or whatever our issue, I think it helps to know that we're not alone. I think so many people feel alone and maybe don't seek help for that reason. But at Wellstone, there's always help.
Most definitely. It's kind of one of those one-stop shop situations. You come in and you are having a substance abuse issue, but it's also equated with a mental health issue, and you're struggling with your medications as well. Needing to know how to just live life on life's terms and balance that. So you can get an array of services to just help you live a normal, healthy life.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
We'll send everybody to wellstone.com for more information.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Remember, we're talking about the first step of AA. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And we're talking about the biblical principle based on that first step for us all. We have destructive issues that are controlling us, and we are powerless to overcome them on our own. Carlos Villas, a Spanish monk, wrote about a profound experience he had while riding a bicycle in the countryside in India. He suddenly became aware that nature had grown deathly quiet. An eerie hush had fallen over the countryside. Villas saw the reason for the stillness. Not far from where he had stopped, there was a snake with a bird under its spell. The snake's head was slowly weaving as if to hypnotize the bird. The bird, perched on the low branch of a bush, seemed to be frozen in some sort of trance. The snake didn't have the bird in its clutches. The bird was physically free to fly away, but he seemed incapable of flying. The bird appeared to be powerless against the hypnotic movements of the graceful, deadly snake. And his imminent demise was both certain and chilling. The bird, though nothing was forcing it to remain, was as good as dead. Villas felt badly for the little bird and decided to rescue it. He rushed toward the snake, waving his arms and shouting. Sure enough, the snake was distracted, and the bird, as if the trance had been broken, suddenly fled toward the sky. What the Bible calls our sin nature is like the stare of the snake. We aren't forced to make the wrong choices any more than that bird was forced to remain on the branch. We can fly away from temptation anytime we want. But whether our problem is addiction, promiscuity, greed, or self-hatred, or something else, We find ourselves transfixed, mesmerized, spellbound by a power greater than ourselves. We are born with an overwhelming tendency to do the wrong thing. Like that bird, we can fly away anytime, and yet we can't. We are in desperate need of freedom, of liberation, of redemption. We're caught in the hypnotizing gaze of the snake, as it were, unable to break the spell on our own. We need someone bigger than we are to rescue us. And there is hope. Louisa May Tarkenton wrote, "I wish there were some wonderful place called the land of beginning again, where all our mistakes, all our heartaches, and all our poor selfish grief could be laid like a shabby old coat at the door and never be put on again. There is such a place, but finding it begins with these simple words: I can't handle this on my own. When you admit that you have a problem you can't fix, you are well on the way to a new beginning. When you admit that you want to change, but nothing you've tried is working, that you've been trying to get your act together and your act is as untogether as it ever has been, then you are well on the way to finding help and healing, a land of beginning again."
And you've been holding on to me. You once were the air I breathe. So still my heart to remember. Jesus, I am wandering, but you're chasing after me. You once gave your life for me. Still my soul to remember. Still my soul to remember. Your oceans wave without thinking. Your mountains rise without knowing. Your rivers run without needing to know where they are going. Your lilies spinning so free. Oh, they're happy to be. So teach me this kind of humility. Teach me this kind of humility. Jesus, I am struggling. Lord, I'm struggling to see. I'm doubting your provision. Still my soul to remember that Jesus, you're my heart's first love, and you're leading me home through the fire and the flood to the place where I belong. So still my soul to remember. Your oceans wave without thinking. Your mountains rise without knowing. Your rivers run without needing to know where they are going. Your lilies spinning so free. Oh, they're happy to be. So teach me this kind of humility. Teach me this kind of humility. Jesus, you're my heart's first love.
Tennessee Valley Church means church has left the building. So has membership. Here's what I mean. You might be feeling a need or maybe even a call from God to be part of our church family in a more tangible way. If you're not able to join us physically here at 600 Governors Drive, whether because of distance, mobility, schedule, or some other reason, you still can be a member of First Baptist Huntsville. Let me send you information on what that would mean, what you could expect from your church, and what your church would expect from you. Email me at travis@fbchsv.org. Let me know of your desire for membership, and I'll help you get started. Join hands with us as we attempt to join hands with God Himself in His mission to the world.
Because I know He holds the future, and life is worth the living just because He is. And life is worth the living just because He